look at, I mean, I know Democrats always like to point to Scandinavian countries, but I'm going to do it. One thing you notice about those countries, which do have a pretty high tax burden, but the reason there's also a higher sense among people that it's fair is that they get good results. They have good healthcare and good education. And that doesn't just happen because you put the money in. But if you put the money in and you do it right, then the public's going to be more trusting, right? That you're getting something out of those tax dollars.
So I think it's easy to do when like every girl's hot.
Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, was a guest on Andrew Schulz's show to talk about a number of topics. They had about an hour-long conversation. I picked out a couple of clips here that I wanted to share on the channel that I think are interesting. We're going to take a look at Mayor Pete debating with Andrew Schulz, who was viewed as a MAGA guy, but now there are some holes being poked in his worldview, and he and some of these other bro podcast guys may be changing a bit. So we're going to take a look at these clips of Pete Buttigieg and Andrew Schulz. I have my own thoughts to share on this as well. Let's check it out together.
Back to that.
You have Bernie and AOC who clearly have a message that's resonating. Why isn't the party getting behind that?
So I think a lot of what they have to say will get more and more traction in the party, especially on the economic piece, right? This idea that you have a lot of regular people in regular life getting screwed over by the way things work. And if we don't have better services and fairer taxes, like we're just never going to get through that.
And it's thrown in their face. And it's thrown in their face quite often. Look how great Biden's economy is. Look at the stock market. And they're like, that doesn't affect me at all.
Cereal's $10.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
I would feel deeply offended if I was them, especially when you throw that kind of support behind, one specific party. And I think that's why you saw a lot of them start to migrate. So then what do you do? Like, how do you get working class people back?
Well, first, I think we need to be more disciplined and louder about that economic message. So look, to be clear, we will be advancing policies that make sure you are economically better off. What does that mean? That means that you can, the one thing I think people do give us a lot of credit for is healthcare, but there's more to do on that, right? We're not going to let them tear up Obamacare. We're going to make sure that there is a fairer tax code, not just standing against the tax cuts for the rich that he's about to push through Congress, but actually having a tax code where there's not a benefit to a corporation, like moving billions of dollars overseas, where there's not a benefit to kind of hiding your worth, where you're not better off basically with wealth than work, which is where the tax code is right now.
Yeah.
I think, need to be much more clear about what we would provide in terms of services for people. We're the only country, I think maybe Papua New Guinea is the only other country in the world that doesn't do a policy for parental leave, some level of national guarantee that when you have a kid,
don't start this, bro.
You will get leave.
Don't start this, man. I got people trying to have kids working at this company right here. we cannot recover from this financially.
It can be done, I promise, because we did it when I was mayor. We did it locally for city employees, and
we at our company we pay for anybody that wants to have their eggs frozen.
It's great.
We don't hire women, though. But we will pay.
There's always a loophole. Yeah. There's always some type of loophole, dude. These middle rich. We need to tax them. The cost of eggs are too high, bro.
Wow. I tease. See what you did.
But yes, we should absolutely pay for it.
But if you, sorry, I'll let you finish, and then I had another question based on.
Continue. But I think there are also some things that we need to kind of rewire in the way government works to make it work better for people. And I lived this. So for example, I'm watching them basically burn the federal government down. And obviously I've got problems with the way they're destroying, cancer research or making it harder for the FAA to keep airplanes safe. A lot of that is bad. But I will also admit that I have been furious and frustrated with the way things work in our federal government. And it's actually gotten to where it makes it harder to do things that I think progressives in particular care about. Building things, building housing, building roads and bridges, which I lived for 4 years, building clean energy projects, stuff we should objectively definitely be doing. And we've gotten in our own way with these layers of process, layers of procedure, all of them introduced with good intentions, but which collectively have made it almost impossible or unaffordable to do anything.
So you want less regulations?
So we need they need to be smarter, and there needs to be less procedure. Still powerful regulations to keep people safe.
So there should be a department to make sure the government is efficient. I think that's like really I think that's
one thing that gets me with Andrew Schultz is I don't know why he doesn't wear pants that are long enough. I know that's a very petty viewpoint, but it always bugs me when you're watching these clips of Andrew Schultz and you can see, halfway up his leg. Maybe nobody else cares about that, but it's always strange to me. Pete Buttigieg talks about Democrats leaning into policies that benefit them, economic policies. And this was something, I brought this up several times on the channel, but I think it's an important point. When Kamala Harris was running, she was talking about going after price gouging. So I think in particular, it was supermarkets and grocery stores price gouging. And I don't remember exactly what the polling numbers were, but it was popular among voters or potential voters. And then all of the 24-hour networks, even the so-called liberal ones, start going after her. Oh, this is going to be terrible. How are you going to go after these companies for price gouging? Kamala Harris's campaign got scared and started backing off of talking about price gouging. But approval for the policy had gone up even after they were attacked. There was this full-on blitz by all of the media to say, whoa, you can't do that. And the policy proposal became more popular among voters. But the Harris campaign dropped it. And to me, that's the Democratic Party in a nutshell right now. They don't lean into the popular policies like Pete Buttigieg is saying they should do. Medicare for all, very popular. That's something that Bernie Sanders talks about a lot. Does the Democratic Party as a whole try to run on that? No. We have the progressives in the party, like Bernie, who are actually pushing these moderately progressive policies. In other countries who essentially have Medicare for all, it's just healthcare. It's not looked at as being a left or far left thing like it is presented by our media and our politicians. But the sad thing is we have a Democratic Party establishment. And is Pete Buttigieg within this? I don't know if Pete Buttigieg would become president. Would he be a progressive? Would he be more conservative? I don't really know the answer to that question. I suspect he would be pretty much an establishment Democrat and wouldn't try to do anything like Medicare for all. But I know that overall we have a Democratic Party establishment. I'm talking about Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They don't want Medicare for all or really progressive policies. So you have a real disconnect between the base of the party that wants these things and the establishment that does not want these things. It's very different from the Republican Party, which they're pretty much in line with their base. Now, the unfortunate thing is their base wants horrible things. The base of the Democratic Party, in my opinion, wants to do good things that would benefit people's lives. But the people in charge of the Democratic Party don't want to do that. We're going to take a look at another clip about where our taxes go.
Okay, Pete, here's the actual question I have.
Bad.
I hear a lot of what you're saying is tax the rich, they need to pay their taxes. I remember moving from Texas to California. Texas, I started paying taxes and it was like, I remember I was working at Verizon Wireless and doing a horrible job selling cell phones and my commission would get taxed at like 40%. And I was like, okay, fair enough. But then I'm driving, the roads suck. The schools, from what I heard, sucked. New York, same thing. Very high taxes. There's no Second Avenue subway. Schools are horrible. Right. If you have any kind of money, it seems like you're sending your kids to private schools, or you live in such a rich neighborhood that the public school is basically a private school. What? The tax money seems like it gets wasted and doesn't get used wisely. So I have like an aversion to, they should pay their taxes, because my reaction is, I've seen what happens when people pay taxes.
I agree with that, what he said about California. So I think what he said about California was...
I'm not going to shit on one state or another, but
good.
There is obviously a relationship between the results you see and your willingness to trust that there's anything you're getting out of your tax dollars.
My trust is very low.
Especially with
Americans' trust is very low, right? And if you look at, I know Democrats always like to point to Scandinavian countries, but I'm going to do it. One thing you notice about those countries, which do have a pretty high tax burden, but the reason there's also a higher sense among people that it's fair is that they get good results. They have good healthcare and good education. And that doesn't just happen because you put the money in. But if you put the money in and you do it right, then the public's going to be more trusting, right? That you're getting something out of those tax dollars.
So I think it's easy to do when like every girl's hot.
This guy.
No, like have you been to Scandinavia? It's like every girl's hot, right? So
you're asking the wrong guy.
Sorry, the dudes are hot there too. The dudes are good-looking guys. If you're into that look, I don't know if you're into that look.
So Andrew Schulz makes a stupid joke, and this is a very rare instance. I don't think I've ever seen Pete Buttigieg speechless. He just gives this confused look because he doesn't know what Andrew Schulz is talking about. But this brings up a point that you see very often. One of the arguments about why we can't do X, Y, or Z in the United States that is done in another country. So you see this through, I mean, at least I see this all the time online. Well, these Scandinavian countries, they're homogeneous societies. Everybody's the same there. So of course you can do these things there, but we're a very diverse country, so we can't do these things. And that to me is always such a BS argument. I have a really close friend who lives in Spain, grew up in Spain. He's a Spaniard. And he will say, if we can do these things in Spain, a country that isn't all that wealthy, why can the United States not do these things? He's talking about with healthcare and their public transit and all those kind of things, which is the argument I always make. I don't want to hear someone say, well, this small country, they can do it because, they have a small population and blah, 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 blah. The United States is the richest, most powerful country in the world. The United States could do whatever they want if they want to do those things. We don't have the same type of healthcare system as the rest of the industrialized world in the United States because we have a government that is captured by corporations. Now, I'm sure corporations have tons of influence in all of these other countries as well, but apparently not to the level in terms of lobbying that the United States has. So Andrew Schulz makes this stupid joke, but it is something that we see parroted by right-wingers and probably some left-wingers too. Well, we can't do that. That's the same thing that some other country does. And I just do not buy that argument when it comes to the United States. The country that we put a man on the moon and all of that. And, I definitely hear their argument here about, what am I getting for my tax dollars? I think a whole lot of people see we're giving all this money to other countries to fight their wars and we're doing tax cuts and Trump is bragging about $1 trillion defense budget and we're building Alligator Alcatraz and all of this. But then if people say, hey, my roads are crumbling or my schools are crumbling, well, we don't have any money for that. Have you seen the debt? Have you seen the deficit? We can't spend money. And there's a real disconnect. People see, okay, you're going to spend the money on the things that you want. You want to fight wars and you want to do tax cuts and you want to put people in Alligator Alcatraz, but you don't have money to improve my life. And that's part of why I think you have so many people who are disillusioned with government. They see government as not benefiting them. It's always benefiting somebody else. So even though Andrew Schulz makes a stupid joke here, I think it brings up a broader point about the United States and its priorities. But let me know what you think about all this. If you want to watch the whole thing, it's on the Flagrant YouTube channel, Andrew Schulz's channel. It's almost an hour long. I'm always very impressed with Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and I think he does a great job on these bro podcasts like Andrew Schulz's show. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with Andrew Schulz and his buddies? Do you agree with Pete Buttigieg? Make sure to leave me a comment and make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.